Yevamos, valid, yeah.
Okay. Base. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. There we go. All right. Prohibitions by commandments are secondary arayos by rabbinical decree.
The
Prohibition.
secondary arise, just by the way, I think grandparents are not allowed according to the rabbis. There's no Issur Torah of marrying a grandmother or a granddaughter.
So it's just okay. Rabbinic decree prohibitions because of sanctity are a widow to a Kohen Gadol, a divorcee or kalutza to an ordinary Kohen, a mamzeres or a Nisonite to a Yisrael, and the daughter of a Yisrael to a Nisonite or a mamzer. One who has a brother of any kind binds his brother's wife for yibum and is considered his brother in all respects, except for someone who has a brother from a slave woman or a non-Jewish. One who has a son of any kind releases his father's wife for yibum, is liable for striking or cursing him, and is considered his son in every respect, except for someone who has a son from a slave woman or a non-Jewish.
Because when it's from a slave woman from a non-Jew, then it's not his son halachically.
Okay.
They're not Jewish.
Right. One who betrothed one or two sisters, but does not know which of them he betrothed, must divorce each of them. If he died and left one brother, he performs chalitza with both. If he left two brothers, one performs chalitza, the other they may then perform yibum. However, if they went ahead and married them, we do not force them to divorce.
Okay, so this case is kind of the prototype for the Mishnahs that we're going to learn today. So let's just make sure that we've got this one right.
Okay.
So we have a case of a guy went to a Purim party, and he knows that he did kiddushin on one woman, and then it turns out that they're identical twins or whatever else. The fact is he just doesn't remember which one of them he did kiddushin to, and each of them is claiming that he did it on them. Okay, whatever, because obviously their statement is going to be, it's going to be factored in. If they can clarify, no, it was me. No, it wasn't me. If they did that, then we don't have a shaila. Then he says, okay, then it was you, fine. But if they both, if for whatever reason they're unable to contribute to the discussion, so they're both claiming that he did the kiddushin on them. Nosen getless over getless over, and he has to give a divorce to each one. Why? Because he can't take the chance that he's going to marry his wife's sister, because kiddushin is done. If he takes her sister now, that's an erba, and children will be mamzerim. So he has no option but to give a get to each one of them. Okay, May. So what happens if before he manages to give a get to the sisters, he dies? So now there's a Yevama among these two sisters, and we don't know which one it is. If he's only got one brother, then his brother has to do a chalitza on both of them. It's the same reason that he has to give a divorce to both of them. His brother has to give a chalitza to both of them. If he has two brothers, however, then if one of the brothers takes a fancy to one of the sisters, then he can say to his other brother, you do chalitza to the other one, and then I'll do yibum on this one. And then Imanav Shachet works out fine, because if our dead brother was married to the one I'm not interested in, then you've done a chalitza and all's good. Right. And if he was married to the one I'm going to marry, then I'm doing a yibum and all is good. Okay. However, if both brothers decide that they each like one of the sisters, and each one of them decides to go ahead and do a yibum on these two women, then that's then they shouldn't have done it. It was wrong what they did, but we don't force them to divorce, because at this point, the reason why they were asked to marry both either sister was because you've got this thing called achos zakukasod. Neither of them was married to one of the sisters, but it's possible that one of them one of them was a zakuka for yibum. So therefore, he was not allowed to marry the sister, but that's a din d'Rabbanan, because it looks like marrying your wife's sister, but the connection for yibum is not yet a wife. So it's only on a d'Rabbanan level that Chazal said that you can't marry the wife of the woman that you need for chalitza. So therefore, if they actually went ahead illegally and married these two women, then you say, okay, no, you shouldn't have done it, but leave it where it is. Okay, now the case, that was the prototype case, and now in the coming Mishnahs, we have the same, the same case, but just on two sides.
All right.
So now there are two guys who were at the Purim party, and each of them did a kiddushin on one of the two sisters. And neither of them now knows who did the kiddushin. So we'll give these guys names. We've got Reuven who does kiddushin on the one, and Moshe who does kiddushin on the other. Okay, we will keep the names in terms of Chazal, in terms of Chumash families. Okay. So Reuven and Moshe are not related, but the two sisters involved here. Okay. So each one of them has to give 2 gittin, 1 to each woman. Meisu, now what happens if Reuven and Moshe both die? So Reuven's got a brother Shimon and Moshe's got a brother Aaron. So Shimon has to do chalitza to both women, and Aaron has to do chalitza to both women. Now what happens if Reuven has got 1 brother, Shimon, Moshe has got 2 brothers, Aaron and Elazar. Okay. So the single brother, that is Shimon, has to do chalitza to both women. Now it's the same as the end of the previous Mishnah. So Aaron can do chalitza to one of them, and Elazar can do yibum to the other one, because again we've got that manafshach. One way or another, it's going to be a valid marriage, either because he's because it's an unrelated woman, or because he's actually doing yibum. What happens if Aaron and Elazar both marry these two sisters? Same case as last time. Where we don't force them to divorce. It's a legitimate marriage afterwards, after the fact. Now what happens if both brothers have got 2 surviving brothers? Okay. So Shimon does chalitza on 1 woman, and let's say we've got Rachel and Leah. So Shimon does chalitza on Rachel, and Aaron does chalitza on Leah. Okay. So now Levi can come and do yibum on Leah, and Elazar can come and do yibum on Rachel. So that the patterns overlap, and once again we're covered in the case that every woman who needs a chalitza has had a chalitza, and now it's legal to do a yibum. Okay, kadmu shnayim v'chaltzu lo yiyavmu hashnayim. So if 2 of them, let's say Shimon and Levi, went ahead and did chalitza to Rachel and Leah, that doesn't give permission to Moshe, to Aaron and Elazar to now come and do yibum on both of them, because once again you've got that situation where one of them definitely needs a chalitza from Moshe's surviving brothers. So you need to do a chalitza on one lechatchila. So one of them can do chalitza and the other one could do yibum. Kadmu v'kansu. However, if they both went ahead and married Rachel and Leah, it's again the same situation where the Issa was only lechatchila, but b'diavad, once they've actually gotten married, it's legitimate. Mishna ches, mitzvah begadol liyabim. The lechatchila mitzvah is that the oldest brother should do the yibum. Okay, the imkadam hakatan zacha. But if the younger brother went ahead and did the yibum, nonetheless that's valid. Hanit an al hashifcha v'nishtachera. Now, what happens if somebody is suspected of having had relations? Why do we bring in this situation at this point? Is because we are dealing with the relation. We've been speaking in the previous Mishnah about people who are asur to get married to somebody, but if they got married, no, it's okay. And we're going to have similar cases over here now. Hanitan ala shifcha v'nishtachera or ala nochris v'nisgaira hareze lo yichnos. So if a Jewish man is suspected of having had a relationship with a non-Jewish bondswoman, or with a non-Jewish woman, and they became Jewish later, either by giur or by freeing the slave, we say, don't marry her. It's just going to make people talk. Okay, and then they'll say, our suspicions are confirmed. He really was having something on the side with this woman. Okay, but in kanas en motziin miyado. But nonetheless, if he said, I've got to marry this woman, he gets his witnesses together and he does it, and he does a kiddushin. Okay, no, you don't mind people talking about you. That's your business. Fine. Hanitzan al eishes ish. However, if a man is suspected of having an affair with a married woman, and now her husband divorces her, there's no clear evidence that he did it, otherwise he'd be executed. Okay, but this woman was now divorced. Even though he has actually gone ahead and married her, he will be forced to divorce her. Why? Because the din with adultery is asur lebal asur leboil. He's not allowed. The husband is forbidden to live with a woman who he knows or suspects has had an affair, and furthermore, she is asur to marry the man she's had the affair with, or is suspected to have the affair of. Okay. All right.
So she said she was suspected of having it, so that means that they go through the whole thing of sota. She's a sota.
Well, then if you don't have the dinner of sota, then you don't have any option like that. He's just got to divorce her.
Right.
And that would be the halacha today. Is that if a man discovers that his wife has been having an affair with another man, and then he has to divorce her, and she's not allowed to marry the paramour. I was just talking with my yeshiva friends this week. Some of them are community rabbis, and somebody was asking, like, what is the weirdest shilas, or the most far out shilas you've had to deal with? And one of them said, I just caught my sister-in-law having an affair with another woman. Should I tell my brother? This is his question. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's like pretty wild. Anyways,
What do you do in a case like that? What do you do?
Well, you got to look at the particular circumstances. It is a kind of a betrayal. So he says he did advise the person to tell his brother, because it was something that he needed to know. And there was another one that asked, like, is it considered adultery to have an affair with a married non-Jewish woman, or are there laws of kiddushin not considered valid for us? Like, everyone's like kind of scratching their head. Is that like asking for a friend? And one of them said, did he add on another line saying, I kind of need to know in the next 5 minutes?
Oh my gosh.
These rabbis, they get the crazy stuff. They don't get paid enough, honestly. Mishna Tes, Amavi get mi Medinas Hayam. Okay. Well, now, if you recall from Gittin, when a get is brought inside Eretz Israel, you can usually validate it by the witnesses. Mm-hmm. So if the husband later comes and says, no, this get was forged, the witnesses can say, listen, we were there, you can see the witnesses' signatures and who it was. They can always say, you didn't forge it, this is real, and against his protestations, his wife is free to go. When, however, the husband is overseas and the messenger comes back carrying the get, he has to say, it was written in front of me and was signed in front of me, it's a valid get. And if the husband subsequently comes back from overseas, Chazal granted this witness a single witness, because he's just one messenger, and he's saying, look, I mean, they had obviously two witnesses on the get when it was done overseas, but I'm carrying it and it was done in front of me. So Chazal invested him with a believability, a credibility, that even if the husband now comes and says, no, that it's a forgery, that we believe the witness who said it was signed and written in front of me. Okay, so now that special dispensation given to this one witness has its limitations, because here's a case where Hamevimi get Medina Sayam Amar Lo Hisai is Ishto. So now, this woman who has just been released because of his say-so, he is not allowed to marry her, because that now gives him ulterior motives. Because he could have forged the whole thing just because he set his eyes on this woman, and now he's given now based on his word, she's now released, and now he's allowed to marry her. That's not going to work. Okay, and I think it's even going to be. No, it doesn't say the B'diavad case in here. I don't know what the halacha would be B'diavad if he went ahead and married her. Mace, haragtiv, haragnuhu. So if a witness comes from overseas or anywhere and says that the husband is dead, remember we had this case where in order to, it was a takanas or tikkun olam, that we said that if a witness comes and says that the husband is dead, we believe even one witness to release his wife to get married, but there are massive penalties on her if it turns out that he's not really dead. Okay, so if a witness comes and says he's dead, or haragtiv, I killed him, or haragnuhu, or we as a group killed him, lo yisais ishto. Again, he's not allowed to marry this woman because it's based on his say-so, a special dispensation of Chazal that he was granted the credibility to release her to get married. Now she's allowed to marry anyone else, but not him. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, haragtiv lo tinasei ishto, haragnuhu tinasei ishto. So Rabbi Yehuda says the reason why he is not believed, he's not allowed to marry her, is because he is making himself into a rasha in all of these statements. If we say that in this statement where he says I killed him, that's why we don't let him marry her, because he's making himself a rasha, and at the same time we don't believe his testimony. When you say haragnuhu, however, if he just says I was in a group of people who, and one of our number killed him, he's not saying that I did it. He's saying that somebody in our crowd did it. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says, fine, we'll believe him, and furthermore, he's allowed to marry the widow because he's not making himself into a rasha in this case. And it sounds like that in that case he would also say about the mace. What would Rabbi Yehuda say about I saw him die? Well, that's the same. It's basically the same thing. So it seems like Rabbi Yehuda would also agree on the case of mace.
He says if we killed him, then she can remarry. She can marry.
But he can marry her. More the point.
He can marry her.
Right. Which also means that mace, he would also be allowed to marry her. So he's disagreeing not just about haragnuhu, but also about mace. It's just about haragtiv. He agrees with the Tanakama, but the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda. Okay.
Isn't I mean, they're saying we killed him. The two of them killed him. So isn't there a penalty now? They're not talking about a penalty here at all
there's no penalty. You can't punish a person based on his own edus.
Based on, excuse me?
On his own edus cannot render him liable to a death penalty. So any kind of non-monetary damages. Monetary damages a person can confess to. If he admits it, then it's like 100 witnesses against him. But for capital or corporal punishments, his own testimony is invalid.
So they have to have two witnesses come and say we saw them do this.
Okay. I think I'll go to the later minion. Let's go.
Yeah, but there's a later minion?
Yeah, there's an 8:15.
Oh, okay. What time is it? I don't even know what time it is.
8:05.
5 after. Okay. Chagiga?
Yeah, Chagiga base.
Okay. Okay. Yosef ben Yotzeh says not to lean the hands on the hand of a sacrificial animal on Yom Tov, and Yosef ben Yochanan says to lean. Yeshua ben Prakia says not to lean. Nitia the Arbalate says to lean. Yehuda ben Tabai says not to lean. Shimon ben Shatak says to lean. Shemaiah says to lean. Avitalon says not to lean. Hillel and Menachem did not agree. Did not disagree. Did not disagree. Menachem left office. Shammai entered. Shammai says not to lean, and Hillel says to lean. The former other respected pairs were Nisim, and the latter were heads of the Bezdin. Beit Shammai says we may bring shalom on Yom Tov without leaning on them, but we may not bring olios. Excuse me. Beit Hillel says we may bring both shlomin and olios, and we may lean on them. If Shavuos falls on the eve of Shabbos, Beit Shammai says the day of slaughter is after the Shabbos. Beit Hillel says there was no day of slaughter after Shabbos. They concur that if it fell on Shabbos, the day of slaughter is after Shabbos. The Kohen Gadol does not don his special garments on that day. Moreover, they are permitted to eulogize and fast in order not to confirm the view of those who say that Shavuos is always the day after Shabbos. We must wash the hands for unsanctified.
Done.
That was it? Okay.
Yeah. Tonis based dalad.
After the first, he says, he who answered Avram on Mount Moriah, he shall answer you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who redeems Israel. After the second, he says, he who answered our forefathers at the Sea of Reeds, he shall answer you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who remembers the forgotten. After the third, he says, he who answered Yeshua in Gilgal, he shall answer you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who hearkens to the sounding of the shofar. After the fourth, he says, he who answers Shmuel in Mitzpah, he shall answer you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who hearkens to a cry. After the fifth, he says, he who answered Eliyahu on Mount Carmel, he shall answer you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who hearkens to the prayer. After the sixth, he says, he who answered Yonah from the fish's belly, he shall count you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who answers in time of distress. After the seventh, he says, he who answered David and his son Shlomo in Yushalayim, he shall answer you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. Blessed are you, Hashem, who has mercy on the land. It happened in the days of Kalafta and Reb Chanina ben Trajan that one went before the ark and completed the entire blessing, but they did not respond Amen after the blessing. Sound the tekiah, O Kohanim, sound the tekiah. He who answered our father Avram on Mount Moriah, he shall answer you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. Sound the teruah, O sons of Aaron, sound the teruah. And he who answered our fathers at the Red Sea, he shall answer you and hearken to the sound of your cry this day. When the matter came before the Kohanim, they said, such was not our custom except at the eastern gate and on the Temple Mount. On the first 3 fast days, the Kohanim of the Mishmar fast but do not complete their fast, and the Kohanim of the Bezdin do not fast at all. On the second 3 fast days, the Kohanim of the Mishmar fast and complete their fast. The Kohanim of the Bezdin fast but do not complete their fast. On the last 7 fast days, both groups fast and complete their fast. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. But the Kohanim say on the first 3 fast days, neither group fasts at all. And on the second 3 fast days, the Kohanim of the Mishmar fast but do not complete their fast. And the Kohanim of the Bezdin, Beis Av, do not fast at all. On the last 7 days, the Kohanim of the Mishmar fast and complete their fast, and the Kohanim of the Bezdin, Beis Av, fast but do not complete their fast. The Kohanim of the Mishmar.
Done. Sachin, test dalad.
Beis Dalad.
Test dalad, I said. That's fine.
You said test dalad, right?
Yeah.
If the Pesach was offered as a state of contamination, Zavim, Zavos, menstruants, and women after childbirth might not eat of it, but if they did eat, they are exempt from the penalty of Karas. But Eliezer exempts them even from the Karas due for entering the temple. What is the difference between the Pesach offered in Egypt and the Pesach offered of succeeding generations? The purchase of Egypt Pesach was on the 10th of Nisan. It required sprinkling of its blood with a bundle of hyssop upon the lintel and upon the 2 doorposts and was eaten in haste during one night. But the Pesach of succeeding generations is observed all 7 days. Said Rabbi Yeshua, I have heard that the substitute of a Pesach is offered and the substitute of a Pesach is not offered, but I cannot explain it. Rabbi Kiva says, I will explain. If the original Pesach offering was found, was found before the slaughtering of the substitute Pesach, it must be left to pasture until it develops a blemish, is then sold, and a peace offering is brought with its proceeds. And so is the rule regarding the substitute. But if it was found after the slaughtering of the substitute Pesach, it is offered as a peace offering, and so is the rule regarding the substitute.
Okay, so, that's done.
That's it. Okay.
Lion.
Lion. Here we go. Tailors may sew in the usual fashion, but provided they do not react to the sun in the sun or to the rain in the rain, but the scrupulous sew on the ground. Bersin, Bartitsin, the Dalmatic, Yon, and felt shoes may not be worn until they have been examined. Rabbi Yossi says those which come from the coast and from overseas need not be examined, since the presumption is they are made of hemp, and wool-lined shoes do not come under the prohibition of kalayim. Only spun and woven goods come under the prohibition of kalayim, for it is written, "You shall not wear shatnez, that which is shoe, tavi, and nuts." Reb Shimon ben Eleazar says, "Nalos, he is estranged, lives and estranged his father in heaven against him." Felted materials are forbidden because
we're done three.
that was 3, really?
That's right. Yeah, after the ones in Tainus is like a whole Megillah each.
Okay, Caleb. The page regarding Mashpela's container that became too damaged to hold pomegranates. Reb Meir rules a tame, but the Kachamim rule a tahor, because when the primary function of the utensil is disabled, its secondary function is considered disabled as well. Regarding pillows, mattresses, sacks, and martufin that became damaged, these can become tame with midrash truma. A feed basket with a capacity of 4 calves is a shepherd's pouch with a capacity of 5 calves, a keresis with a capacity of saw, a water skin with a capacity of 7 calves. Yehuda says also a spice bag and a traveler's bag of any size. All these are susceptible to midrash tuma, but if any of them become damaged, they are tahor because the primary function is disabled and the secondary function is disabled as well. A bagpipe is impervious to midrash tuma. Regarding a trough of pisonis, Beis Shammai says it is susceptible to midrash tuma, but Beis Hillel says it is only susceptible to becoming tamei with corpse tuma. Regarding a trough with a capacity of between 2 logs and 9 calves that crack, it is susceptible to becoming tamei with midrash tuma, and if one left it in the rain and it swelled, it is susceptible to becoming tamei with corpse tuma. If he then placed it in the east wind and developed a crack, it is susceptible to midrash tuma. This is a stringency that applies to the remnant of wood utensils over the original utensil, and the stringency that applies to the remnants of a wicker utensils over the original utensil that are not susceptible to tuma until their rims are secured, but after their rims are secured, even though their rims fell away, it is only the smallest amounts of the rims remain there tamei.
Okay, that's it.
All right. Okay, Sanhedrin.
No, Marcos. We finished Sanhedrin yesterday.
Did I take it out? How are witnesses punished for Zama? We testify regarding
Aleph Gimel.
where you testify against so and so, so that he is liable against him, that he owed not another 200 zuz, and they were found to be zomamin. They divided among themselves, but if they testified against him that he was liable to 40 lashes, and they were found to be zomamin, each one is flogged 40 lashes. The witnesses do not become zomamin unless they discredit them personally. How so? If they said we testify against so and so, and that he killed someone, and others
stop. You skipped a page. You skipped the whole page. I lost the place over there.
We start on Dalit. Gimel, right?
Gimel.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You shall, if they were found flogged, some women, they were flogged 40 lashes. Because of Exodus, you shall not bear false witnesses against your neighbor. Because of the Devarim, you shall do to him as he planned to do. These are the words of Reb Meir, but Reb sages say they are flogged only 40 lashes. They divide payments of money, but they do not divide lashes. How so? If they testified against him that he owed another 200 Jews and they were found to be zomamin, they divided among themselves. But if they testified against him that he was liable to 40 lashes and they were found to be zomamin, each one is flogged 40 lashes. The witnesses do not become zomamin unless they discredit them personally. How so? If they said we testify against so and so and that he killed someone, and others said to him, "How can we testify so when this murder victim or this murderer was with us on the day in such and such a place?" These are not considered zomamin. But if they said, "How can you testify so when you were with us on that day in such and such a place?" These are considered zomamin and they are executed by the testimony. If others came and discredited them, and still others came and they discredited them, 2, even 100 of them, all of them are executed. Rabbi Yehuda says this is a group of plotters, and the only for first group is executed. Zoe,
That's
I
3.
can? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna run off and daven.
Okay, we only have one more left anyway, right?